the biggest obstacle that we would encounter is lack of activists within Ireland. And at the beginning of my activist journey, it was something that I always put a lot of pressure on myself to worry about. But then I sort of realized that it's quality, not quantity.
It is safe to assume that there is a collective awareness in the room in regards to one industry that has been oppressing fur-bearing animals for years. We are also well aware that the same industry in particular has followed some notable trends as of late, and the industry that I am referring to is fur farming. Across the world, we have seen fur farms shrinking, closing, and province/countrywide bans being implemented. We have seen consumer demand for fur dip at an unparalleled rate, societal perception shift significantly, and a new awareness cultivated where one sentiment is glaringly clear: the public does not support fur farming anymore. While we can't project a timeline for when all non-human animal oppression will cease, we can acknowledge that due to what we have observed with fur farming, what we have seen within fur farming campaigns, and what we are witnessing as fur farm after fur farm topples, this is one industry that will come to a close in our lifetime. Today, we're bringing together visionary activist leaders from around the globe as they delve into the triumphs and challenges of campaigns pertaining to the fur farming industry, their strategies, tactics, and above all, their extraordinary successes. My name is Zoe Peled, which you already know. I am a Canadian activist, co-founder of Ban Fur Farms BC, and this afternoon, I will be moderating this panel discussion. Welcome to the end of fur farming. And at this point, I'm going to invite our panelists to join me. So please welcome Amy, Laura, and Enric. So, the folks that you see seated next to me here have all left an indelible mark on the battle against fur farming thus far. Amy, Laura, and Enric. So, to start our discussion, I'd like to invite all of you to introduce yourselves and give a concise introduction to the different organizations that you are all representing today.
Hello. Hi, my name is Amy Soranno. I'm an animal activist from British Columbia, Canada. Typically speaking, I engage in a lot of civil disobedience and direct action. That has been the majority of my work thus far. And I am also a co-founder, oh, it just got louder. I am also the co-founder of Ban Fur Farms BC alongside Zoe. And I am one of the Excelsior 4 activists that was sentenced to prison after exposing criminal animal cruelty at a pig farm.
Hi, I'm Laura Broxson. I'm from the National Animal Rights Association based in Ireland. Our organisation is primarily based in Dublin, but we travel all around the country with outreach campaigns, pressure campaigns. And one of our biggest campaigns was to ban fur farming, and it was successful. We'll get into that later. But we are a grassroots level DIY voluntary group, and we aim to make Ireland a vegan utopia eventually.
Hello, everyone. My name is Enric. I am from Barcelona, but I'm based in Amsterdam, where we created the Dutch anti-fur movement. And we are part of a bigger umbrella organization called Abolish Fur Worldwide, which operates at the moment in Europe, and we're hoping that in some other cities outside of Europe as well. And I'm also doing other sorts of activism for years, but as per this talk, that's what I'm going to be talking and representing.
All right. So, Laura, if you want to grab that mic, we're going to go back to you first. So your organization was established in 2007 and has a truly extraordinary list of campaign work in many different areas where non-human animals are being oppressed, specifically more than 20 different industries. So when did your organization decide to tackle fur farming, and what was the climate within the industry at the time that your campaign work started?
Well, it's been something that I have been working on pretty much since before 2007, and there was a few almost successes with banning fur farming in Ireland, but at the last hurdle it would fall politically. But our most recent campaign, which started in 2018, was a success. Everything fell into place, and that was a multi-angled approach. It was outreach, it was protests at the fur farms, it was political engagement, but it was a long time coming, and it took a lot of work, a lot of effort, but the campaign that eventually won was a nationwide campaign, and local groups from around the country got involved. It was very popular even in the media, and it just all came together perfectly at last. But it was a team effort, not just our organization.
And coming from an organization that has been established for a longer period of time, we're going to shift to Amy. So Ban Fur Farms BC, as we know, is a younger grassroots organization. In just over 2 years, Ban Fur Farms BC has achieved a lot, but one crucial point is looking at when the organization started and why we chose to start at that time. Can you expand on that?
Yes. So at the start of the pandemic, Zoe and I and a group of others got together because we recognized that there was a lack of strategy happening. We wanted to start something new. We wanted to have a pressure campaign, and we weren't sure what direction we were going to go with this. But fur farming was on the table as an option. And then, very quickly, we realized, as many of you probably know, that fur farms were strongly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And in our province of British Columbia, there were COVID-19 outbreaks on multiple mink farms. So immediately we're like, okay, this is it, we're ready, let's go. And we knew that the government, we had been involved in other campaigns, the government doesn't listen to animal ethics issues, unfortunately, even though that's where our heart is. And even environmental issues, they don't listen. But we were seeing radical changes happening because of the pandemic. And we were seeing the media talk about the pandemic. So we really wanted to catalyze on this. Yes, it was a devastating time in history, but it could also prompt good. And so the main focus of our campaigns were on public health issues and highlighting the fact that our government is failing the public by not banning fur farms, because we were seeing repeatedly that these mink farms were being impacted, and these mink were not only just contracting COVID, they were mutating the virus and transmitting it back to the workers, which were causing widespread issues. So that was sort of the main crux of our campaign.
Well said. So now we have a bit of the background and the why behind 2 of our 3 organizations. So let's pass the mic down. You have it already, so we're good to go. Enric, you have been spearheading anti-fur initiatives in Amsterdam for about 3 years. Can you speak to the impetus behind establishing some of your campaigns, and also answer a question I posed to Laura previously, which was speaking to the general public climate around fur farms at the time that your campaign launched?
So up until that point, I was just doing just vegan activism in general. I just believed that, you cannot really compare suffering, so I just wanted to approach it in a more, let's say, like holistic way. But I don't even remember how I started seeing stuff about the fur industry, and I remember it really shocked me. So I would say that the reason I started was more an emotional reaction rather than anything else. And even though obviously it breaks my heart to see any type of suffering, when I saw an animal being skinned alive, that was just, it just still haunts me to this day. It's not something that I can, it's not something easy to watch and or to hear or to think about. And I just, at the same time, in Amsterdam where we live, you see a lot of fur still, you see a lot of people wearing fur, so it's really all the time on your face. So every time I would just see this image repeated on my head, so I just needed to do something about it. And at the time there was like 3 or 4 friends of mine that were just doing something already about fur. It was not super well organized, but I was like, okay, I'm just gonna join, and that's a bit how it started, a bit unorganized. And I feel like for all 3 or 4 of us, it was just more like an emotional reaction rather than anything else. And then it became to a much bigger thing, but that's really the beginning. In terms of the fur farming for the mainstream, I think people are not really aware of what really happens in fur farms. We do have a lot of investigations about, like what we call farm animals, and it is a little bit more known, and even the mainstream public know a little bit what happens to cows, pigs, chickens, etc. But fur farming is really, I think they do a great job in really hiding that for the public, especially because a lot of things happen, in countries that, it's hard to get access, and, with much lower welfare standards. And so, I think, it's even hard for activists who are really deep into the topic to realize how far the rabbit hole actually goes. And so I think that still today, it's still a bit similar the case, that the item of fur is less accepted even on the mainstream. But when it comes to fur farming, I believe there is still, I just speak for my personal experience, of course, I just feel that there is still a lot of misconceptions and a lot of lack of understanding of what fur farming actually entails.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We were actually speaking about this earlier as well. When we launched in British Columbia, we were a little bit surprised when we started, number 1, engaging with the public, but number 2, engaging with our MLAs in BC, so that is members of the Legislative Assembly, and the fact that the majority of the MLAs we spoke to, number 1, weren't aware that we had fur farms in BC, and or we're not aware of what they were to begin with. So I think that's really important to mention, that there's definitely a more significant education piece when it comes to talking about fur farms with the public and with the government as well. Laura?
Yes.
Hello. Your group has had a number of extraordinary successes in challenging the fur industry. So can you highlight one legal victory that marked a turning point in your mission, and what advice can you give to activists in other countries who may be here today or tuning in online who might consider pursuing similar avenues to bring about change in their respective areas?
Well, our biggest success to date was the ban on fur farming, because it was not just a campaigning win, it was a legislative win as well. We work just naturally, all of us are all, left-wing activists, human rights activists as well. We work a lot with left-wing parties, some of whom were politicians in government at the time and the opposition, and they saw a video that we managed to take undercover inside a fur farm. And when they saw that, they asked to meet with us about teaming up to propose a bill. And they already knew us from human campaigns that we were working on with them and volunteering with anyway, so it was a natural link up. And I remember specifically when we were there discussing the bill, we made it very clear that we did not want them to offer the fur farmers alternative animal use industries. Mm-hmm. And that was really important to us at the time, that when they're getting into debates, whether it's on radio or in Parliament, that they stick with it has to be a non-animal alternative. And they honored their word, and whenever debates came up, their alternative was either funding into maybe tech industry or IT, or converting their fur farms into strawberry farms. So they kept their word on that, and that was just a real shift, because it made the groundwork that we had done with leafleting, stalls, protests, outreach, it got it to a new level. And it wasn't us using a left socialist party to our advantage. We were already comrades. And that's what made it different. And that's what makes it them more open to us when we approach them with other ideas. We have a few other bills on their list at the moment. We're going to be launching more next year as well on other issues. So I think that the best approach for us is our intersectional, consistently anti-oppression approach, and not because we want to take advantage of them, because we genuinely want to be involved.
Well said. And also, I really appreciate and just want to highlight what you touched on regarding establishing those relationships, but also maintaining them long-term, not just maintaining them for the benefit and purpose of one campaign as well. Amy?
Yes.
Your organization, our organization's media campaigns have been very successful in reaching a very wide audience. Could you delve into the specifics of how campaign messages were selected and what strategies have been employed to ensure that those messages cut through the incredible amount of noise in today's media landscape?
Okay. We're pretty disruptive, so I'll start with that. You have to, when you consider the media and you want media awareness and attention with your activism, it has to be media worthy. And I think often we see this over and over again. Activists are frustrated that their activism is not ending up in articles and journalists aren't interested. It has to be media worthy. So I will start there. Backing up a bit, when we started this Fur Farm campaign, we knew that we wanted to start something that was tangible. We knew that there is a chance that we could win, a big chance. But on the same token, it will have a huge impact on animals. And so from there, we decided we wanted a complete ban of fur farming in British Columbia, which is our province in Canada, and then we were going to expand that, go province to province, now that we have an example, and then get the federal bill. And so to get the provincial bill, we really didn't know where to start. How do you get a ban? I don't know. We didn't know. And so we had to figure out who was our target, who can actually make this decision. And we realized that first and foremost, that's probably our Minister of Agriculture, maybe our Minister of Health, maybe our Minister of Environment, but mostly our Minister of Agriculture. And so our sights were set on her, and we also needed to map out who has influence over our minister. So as Zoe alluded to, our MLAs, the lower levels of government, who when you go to them with your concerns, they have to relay their constituents' concerns to the appropriate minister. And so now that we have our targets in mind, our main target and then our lower targets, that's what we wanted to focus our media attention on. So that even if people just saw like one of our news articles or a blip in the media, they would recognize, okay, this target is doing something wrong. Maybe I don't understand the whole picture, but this target, there's something up. And so we did, for example, Gara, who we heard from yesterday, she's an incredible graphic designer. She created posters with the face of our Minister of Agriculture and saying that our minister is failing public health during the pandemic by not banning fur farms. And in one night, we unleashed hundreds and hundreds of these posters all across the province in the main cities and in the city where our minister lives. And so one morning, everyone woke up and all the cities are just completely covered, and that was media worthy. During the pandemic, when everyone's in lockdown and no one's doing stuff, that was media worthy. We also got help from celebrities, so local celebrities in Canada during Christmas time helped us create a music video of a Christmas carol, Away in a Manger, which we revised to Away in a Fur Farm. And utilizing celebrities helps bolster our campaign and give us a little bit more legitimacy and gets media attention. I will just mention one other example that got media attention, and that's when COVID restrictions started to lift. And this was actually the first time that we were face-to-face with our minister. And she was hosting a political fundraiser. It was a bingo night. And so it was her colleagues, her financial supporters, and we went undercover, of course, and we joined in on the bingo. And at one point, one of our activists stood up and yelled bingo. So our minister walked over, and our activist stood up and loudly proclaimed to everyone that our minister is failing us because she is not banning fur farming during the pandemic. And that was, of course, caught on video and became a powerful press release. So I think when we consider media, we have to consider the narrative that we want. If someone just sees one article, what do you want them to take away from that? And what power and impact will that have? And what are we doing that's media worthy? Is it radical enough? Yeah, just a few things.
As I'm sure you can assume, the Minister of Agriculture loved waking up in her hometown and seeing hundreds of portraits of her face plastered everywhere. Enric, let's talk to you. Your organization has been engaging with various communities specifically to build grassroots support against the fur industry. Could you tell us about a particularly successful initiative or a particularly successful tactic?
Yeah, so to be honest, I don't think we are as exciting as what you guys are doing because we didn't reinvent the wheel. We're just basically doing stuff that already worked, which is basically pressure campaigns. We already took stuff that the others doing. We have definitely been implementing our own ideas in terms of props and different taxing, and obviously every city, every country works a little bit different. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just a pressure campaign, which means just keeping it legal, keeping it safe, but still going as far as you can. As far as it is legal. The goal for that is just that you are able to sustain pressure for a long time, annoy the hell out of these people, and create a bit that sense of, okay, yeah, these people are not going away, we really have to do something about it. Basically, we force their hand to do something about it. Me getting media attention, this is something that we have been failing a bit about, I think. It is something that we should improve. That will definitely maybe try some of your ideas, because I think that was really nice. We have also doing pressure campaigns through media. So, for example, social media storms or call storms to the HR departments, to the different stores themselves, and just basically putting so much pressure on them while keeping the non-violence, while keeping our civility, and that really shocks people because we are seen as radical, but when you see reactions from a lot of customers or store owners or whatever, they see that actually the radical ones are on the other side of the street. And so I wanted to mention also something that has been happening here in Europe that we have not initiated, but we have participated on. That's the European Citizens Initiative. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it. It's one, for the ones who are not from the EU, who are not familiar for that, that's a process, a mechanism that the EU has in a way for citizens to bring up legislation. It's a lot more complex than this, but just so you get an idea. And so you have to get 1 million signatures within a year. We got 1.7, and that was the most successful initiative in the history of this mechanism. And thanks. Well, credit to all the organizations, because there has been, I think, over 100 or 150 organizations or more even in Europe that have actively participated in this campaign. And so we just simply set up outreach actions, signature actions, online actions to get as many signatures as possible. And at the moment is being debated within the European Union, and we'll have response before the end of the year. If this passes, that will mean the end of fur farming and fur sales in the entire European Union. And so at the moment, we have been discussing some strategies to follow up on that, because some of the times that the mistakes that activists commit is to just disengage a bit with politics. And so now the second part would be starting lobbying members of parliament and our own national governments to vote in favor of this proposal, because the only thing that this does when you get that amount of signatures is that they will discuss it, that's all. That doesn't mean that they will actually do it. So now it's coming the second part. And we are hoping that it really gonna going to be successful just because we're also seeing a lot of phenomena that are happening. Countries such as Denmark, for example, we're seeing the bird flu being contagious in fur farming, so we're seeing massive culls. Banks, for example, are not giving loans to fur farming anymore because it's too much of a risky business. So we are seeing a lot of different signs that the industry is scrambling all around. And so we're just going to keep up the pressure. And in terms of successes, I would just say that a lot of groups around the world, not just working on fur, but in other campaigns, have had a lot of success with pressure campaigns. We specifically target brands. So the difference of these campaigns is that you don't target consumer or government, but you target the devil themselves. So the ones who are actually killing the animals, creating the demand, making marketing for people to buy these products. So that also as an activist, it feels quite well because you're actually going against the enemy themselves, facing it face to face. And one of the successes that we would say is, many brands like, Dolce & Gabbana and Canada Goose and Moncler and all these big fashion brands have all gone for free because this kind of campaign. So we really believe that that's the way that we're gonna take them down.
I really enjoyed the phrase, as the industry scrambles. That was a nice moment. So we have a few more questions for the panelists, and then we're going to jump into questions from you folks. But I just wanted to take a moment and acknowledge that since this is a bit of a longer discussion slot, if anyone wants to stand up and stretch or have any movement before we continue, go for it. Or no one does, which is fine. Good, I see some stretching happening. Okay, we continue. So this statement is the understatement of the year, and that is that activism is not easy. It comes alongside many challenges and many hurdles, and often within those moments, we learn the most within activism. So this is a question for all of you. Can you share a major obstacle that you've encountered during your activism journey thus far and how you overcame it? Any order.
I would say that for fur farming and any other kind of activism, the biggest obstacle by far, it's the animal rights movement, by far. This is for me like absolutely clear, and we just keep shooting in our foot the whole time. The way we are overcoming this, it's a learning process. Melanie Joy is helping a lot with her theories on that. But we're just trying to be, build a movement, try to be communicative, try to be respectful with each other, try to, empathize with each other, care for each other. And we're just trying to do our best to, also make sure that all the activists that we're working with engage, that everybody has the opportunity to speak out, that everybody has the opportunity to feel involved and engaged in the campaign. So it's not just the organizer saying something and then the rest is doing it, but everybody feels personally invested on the campaign. But again, it's a work in process, and I don't have an answer, unfortunately. But yeah, we're working on it.
On a similar theme, I'd say the biggest obstacle that we would encounter is lack of activists within Ireland. And at the beginning of my activist journey, it was something that I always put a lot of pressure on myself to worry about. But then I sort of realized that it's quality, not quantity. And our organization is very small. There's only 6 of us here at the conference representing Ireland. But we get a lot of work done. We get a lot of successes. And for me, that's the most important thing. I would love if Ireland had thousands of activists all working in different counties, different areas, and on different issues. But we still get the job done, so try not to put yourself under too much pressure. One person can make a difference, and I can remember when I started campaigning, I would often be by myself handing out Go Vegan leaflets when I was a teenager. So if I can deal with that, everyone else can too, and you do make a difference. So don't give up, even if it's just you, you can do it.
Well said.
Yes, I echo what both of you said. To add on to that, I hate to keep bringing up COVID. We're all sick of it, but it's very relevant to our campaign. When we started, it was in the height of lockdown. So we really had to figure out and get creative on how we can do virtual campaigns and still disrupt and pressure our government, but do that virtually. So we did a lot of tweet storms, emails, call actions, and we even disrupted basically every Zoom presentation that our minister gave. So one example is our minister was a keynote speaker at this big agricultural conference, online conference, and we had as many activists from all over the world as possible to join. And for some reason, they weren't really moderating their chat, or like there was no restrictions on the attendees. So we had people writing "ban fur farms" across her face on the screen. Our chat was just filled with "ban fur farms, ban fur farms, ban fur farms." So she couldn't give her talk. And this has happened repeatedly. She knows us. She knows that wherever she goes, we go. But the key is she has no idea what to expect from us. We have never done the same thing twice. And I think that element of surprise really freaks her out and will be a motivator for change. So, yeah, COVID has been an obstacle, but we can still get shit done.
What a line to end with. So, Laura, we touched a little bit on this previously, so I'm going to stick with the question and feel free to add anything that maybe we didn't discuss before. Speaking specifically to policy and policy change, could you elaborate more on the specific steps in working towards that? In other words, who was your main target, and how did you win them over?
Well, our main target was the Minister of Agriculture, because with the stroke of a pen, they would have the power to ban literally anything to do with animals within Ireland. So with fur farming, the minister at the time was the main target, but we needed opposition parties to highlight the issue via legislation in the Dáil, which is our parliament, to get his attention, because we had been protesting his office every week for nearly 2 years, and he'd run away from us and not want to talk. But as the issue became more important within the Irish public domain, he had to eventually listen. And when party after party all said that they would be voting in support of the bill to ban fur farming, not only did he then agree to ban it, he banned it himself and implied it was his idea all along.
Of course.
Which is okay, because the job got done, but the bill that we had with the Socialist Party was much better, much more progressive, and much more immediate, but the job got done, and if he wants to claim it was his, then whatever. But it's important to have a target.
Enric, we're going to move back to you. As we are aware, the fur industry has an international reach. What we are doing here, this conference, is a fantastic example, but can you speak in a little bit more detail regarding how you collaborate with activists from different regions to grow that global impact? And are there any specific strategies that you've discovered when you are coordinating efforts throughout the world?
Yeah, so the way we do it is we simply just try to find activists or people that are already active, or other people that are already doing something related to fur or fashion industry, or basically anybody that just wants to become active, basically. Doesn't really require any skills or anything specific. And we have also had people that have never done activism. I think the best example is our group of Madrid, our organizer. He's doing one single man protest. He had never done anything by himself, and the first one, he went inside the store, he dropped an alarm on the roof of the store, and it was honking and honking, and they wouldn't be able to take it out, and they had to pull him out of the store. And that was just simply his first protest. It was just absolutely incredible. Like, I would have never done that, like, not even after 2 years of activism, And it just shows that anybody can do it. And so the only thing that we look for is people that are motivated, and then we give all the tools that they need. We are able to just share our tactics and share our strategies, and if we can, then what we try to do also is just go to that city. And so we try to bring activists and the props and stuff like that. So we try to do 1, 2, 3 actions with them. So they see how it's done and then see how the feeling is, because every city is also different. So sometimes you encounter resistance with customers, or sometimes some violence or some police harassment. And so it helps if more experienced activists are there to help navigate. But other than that, simply we're just trying to pass all the information that we can. We have some people that are constantly just doing research and passing it on to us, and that's just simply how we try to expanding and encouraging. But really, there is no secret, to be honest.
Amy, we're going to talk a bit more now. So as you discussed previously, we have done a lot of work around focusing on the government, specifically the Ministry of Agriculture. So what are some examples of strategies for effectively engaging with government officials and policymakers? And could you provide one example of a successful engagement?
Sure. So we knew at the start of this that this was going to be a political campaign. It was sort of out of our comfort zone. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we knew that we were going to learn. And part of that was going to people like Laura, who have successfully done this very, very well, and learning from people, strong activists and strong groups who engage with policy and politics a lot. So we learned a lot. We're still learning every single day. But the key for us is, of course, to map out our target, as I mentioned, and be relentless. So under our Minister of Agriculture, we have, do you know how many MLAs are in BC?
I want to say roughly 80.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them, and we contacted all of them, and we wanted to build relationships. So that was key for us, to also educate. As Zoe mentioned, many of them didn't even know what fur farms were, nevertheless that we have them in our communities. So we wanted to educate them, provide them with the necessary information and studies and stats, but we also wanted them to really push for a ban. And there were several MLAs who support us, and they still support us to this day. So those are allies that we really, really cherish those relationships, because they have taught us so much. They are open to any questions that we have, and they are willing to push for a Minister of Agriculture meeting with us. So to meet with your minister directly is very difficult, especially as animal activists and animal groups. She doesn't want to meet with us. And she's seen us and met with us many times, but not officially, and she doesn't want to. So, but it's very important that we sit down with her and we provide all the information of why it's so important for us, why we want this ban. And these MLAs are willing to advocate for us and really push this meeting forward. So we're still, to this day, waiting for our meeting with the minister. But yeah, cultivating any relationships within politics is very important.
We will get the meeting. Eventually. Whether it is formal or informal. So one more specific question for Enric, and then we'll jump into a few group questions to wrap up. As the movement gains momentum, companies are increasingly pledging to go for free. How do you hold these companies accountable for their commitments? And can you share an instance where corporate engagement made a substantial difference in your cause?
Yeah, so basically when a company pledges to go for free, you just gotta keep checking their website, their newsletter, the stores if you can, if they're close by, just to make sure that it doesn't go up again. We had a few instances where, years later, companies that had already had, and even, had on their website still the pledge, they started selling some items with fur, for example. And so you just gotta keep checking. And for example, one example that I can give more recently was Gucci, that they pledged to go for free, I think 2017, 2018, something like that. And then this, at the beginning of 2022, I believe it was, because it was the Chinese rabbit year, they decided to have rabbit head, fur, full fur hat with and it was very sick because they made this super nice marketing campaign in the field of grass with, people cherishing rabbits and playing with rabbits, and, it just was so absolutely sick. So we all focused on that campaign, and within a month or less than a month, they dropped it again. So it just really shows that, well-coordinated pressure just really, you can really hold them accountable, So yeah, I think that's the best example that I can give, but there is many other brands that have already done the same, that have backtracked on their commitments, and then we just target them like really strong until they stop.
The fur industry, as I think we have observed with all animal agriculture industries, often adapt to counter-activism efforts. So how do you evolve your strategies and your campaigns to keep up with their responses? And can you provide an example of a time where you had to pivot your approach to overcome industry pushback, whether it be anticipated or not anticipated?
I'll just have a look. To be honest, we didn't really have a lot of pushback. Like what we had in stores was like maybe more security, harsher methods. Because we protest like right at the door. So for example, they have methods to like push us a bit. They put, they work a bit well with the police to just make sure that we are far away as possible from the entrance, so that we try to disrupt as less as possible. Working a lot with the authorities to try to make sure, like taking away our megaphones, trying to reduce our volumes, trying to break up. But honestly, like the most pushback has been from authorities, just basically trying to restrict those protests by any means necessary, threatening us, trying to intimidate us, police chasing us down. We had some instances in other cities, I believe in Paris and maybe others, that activists were actually, chased down the metro station, or people were like taking pictures of them with like professional cameras. So we are aware that they are looking into us. We are not really sure who that is, if it's the stores, the industry, the police, like we are not really sure. I think, in my opinion, they all work together, all the same stuff. But yeah, we don't really need to pivot. We just really adapt in terms of props. So for example, they banned us, like they forbid us in Amsterdam to stay in front of the store. So we just created a banner that goes above the door because it's forbidden to disrupt like at the entrance. So we just create a banner that says "Fur is murder." So every customer has to walk through that banner to go inside the store. And for example, if they chalk and they take it away, we chalk again, we go back, we chalk again, we go back, we chalk again. We have, and every time they push, we create a new thing. So for example, when they've been a bit more stronger, we started using blood on the ground, like fake blood, put it on the ground in front of the stores, stuff like that. But to be honest, the worst thing has been a bit more the harassment, stuff like that. There is nothing really that we can do with that. We're just gonna keep going, that's it.
For us with the fur farming campaign, there wasn't too much pushback from the fur farming industry itself. They actually refused to do radio debates with us and refused to do TV debates with politicians. So they wouldn't engage at all. They went into hiding when the video was released. But similarly with fur protests, our biggest issue would not be from the public, it would be from the police. And that would be either they were not allowed to use megaphones, or they don't like the posters, or they don't like the distance with which we're standing from the fur shop. But, come up with alternatives. When we couldn't use megaphones, we used our voices. And when they didn't like the specific posters we had, we used different ones. And what also helps is really knowing the law. In Ireland, the Public Order Act is fairly ambiguous, and it comes down to each individual police officer's opinion rather than some legislative fact. So basically, when you don't show fear and you know what you're talking about, they leave you alone pretty quick.
I think there's always going to be challenges with activism, of course. I mean, this whole movement is a struggle. It's a fight. That's the point. But what I see over and over again is often there are groups that are very, very firm on their tactics. They are stubborn and not willing to move or reassess whether they're being effective or not. So I think for us, it was really important that we humble ourselves and we acknowledge that some stuff just isn't going to work. Some stuff won't get media attention. Some stuff won't actually, maybe you can't get into the building to disrupt. That's okay. Let's step back, reassess, and figure out what could be effective next time. And as I said, we never did the same thing twice, and I think that was really important. As far as industry pushback, so I guess I haven't mentioned that in 2021, we did effectively get a mink fur farm ban in British Columbia. So that was a huge success. Yeah, yay. But the problem is it's only for mink. So they did implement the ban because of COVID-19, but there weren't COVID-19 outbreaks at other fur farms. However, all of the fur farms in British Columbia, except for one, were mink. So there's one chinchilla fur farm left, and now all the rest are empty. So our worry is that there's no legislation to prevent other species of animals from filling the mink spots. So that's a big goal right now. But after the mink fur farm ban, the mink farmers sued the government. So they went after the government to try and fight back, and this has led to a trial that's coming up in November between the Ministry of Agriculture and the fur farmers of British Columbia, which I think is going to be very interesting because our Minister of Agriculture now has to go into a courtroom and explain why she banned mink fur farming and why it's legitimate, why it's important, and we can use that to push for all of the other fur farms and beyond, any animals, really. So I'm actually really excited for that trial because A, I don't think the fur farmers are gonna win, of course not, and B, I mean, the minister is gonna give us ammo, really.
And we will definitely be mindful to share information about that trial when more information is made available to us as well. As individuals who are all working towards the same end goal, acknowledging that we have a few different strategies and focuses, what has been the thing in your journey thus far that has surprised you the most or been the most unpredictable component?
Okay, I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna speak personally, so I'm not sure what Zoe's answer to this would be, but for me personally, as I mentioned, a lot of my past work has been engaging in direct action and civil disobedience. That's been my focus and my goal, and I feel my expertise. So going into this campaign and learning a different approach has been really intriguing to me because I have learned and taught for so many years that civil disobedience gets the goods as fast as possible, and I still believe that. But it's been so fascinating to see how a different approach with so few people that just really prioritizes strong strategy can still get the goods really quickly. So for me, that's been a pleasant surprise.
For our campaign, I think the most surprising thing that happened was the footage we got inside the fur farm, because we didn't actually plan on going in or scaling any fences or doing any undercover operation. We were outside one of the fur farms just simply taking photos, and one of the workers came out to the fence, and some of my Irish comrades might remember he had a small hatchet in his hand. And he just asked us what were we doing, and I said that we were lost and looking for directions, and I knew the name of the nearest town and asked him how to get there. Then I asked him what was the place. He told me what it was. I said, do you not think that's cruel? And he said, no. And I just said, I don't know why, I just said, can I go in and have a look? And he said, okay. And one of us had a camera. And so we got them to hide the camera under their jacket, and we walked in, and it was horrific, as you can imagine. But we were going up and down fur sheds, asking him questions, talking about how amazing it all looked and how surprised we were and what a place. But what then did happen was the owner of the fur farm radioed him, I guess to ask what was going on or where he was. And the owner of the fur farm, about maybe 7 years previous, me and him had a head-to-head debate, so he would definitely recognize me. So all of a sudden, we had to make our excuses and leave to go to this party we were having in the next town. And we ran out of there, kept driving till the nearest town till we were safe. Then I think we all cried afterwards. But then we were able to turn that into the campaign video that went viral and got us the legislation to ban it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna explain two instances because one is a bit negative, so I want to end with a positive note. The first one was we were protesting in front of Louis Vuitton, and we had a family of a guy, a woman, and a baby that they had in the little chair, and we play the screams of the animals when they get skinned alive on a megaphone. This is one of the most useful tactics that we have. And the woman literally broke down. Like she started crying. Like she was in line because these fashion stores have always like some big lines. So she was in line, so she had to like take the whole thing. She listened to the whole thing and she started crying. She saw what we were doing. She heard everything that we were saying. And even then, she went inside the store and she left with a Louis Vuitton bag. And so the cognitive dissonance, I just, that was the biggest example of, cognitive dissonance that I ever seen, On the positive side is like these stores are, big fashion brands are normally in these like very rich, fancy streets with fancy cars, fancy people in suits, streets that I don't think anybody of you would go unless you go to disrupt. And it's very nice because sometimes even when you're in a small group, you feel so out of place, over there. And when you're in a small group, you feel sometimes a bit small because, most people don't agree with you, radical loud activists. But even then, it's so beautiful to see like so much support, so people walking by singing like, hey guys, yo, kudos. We had people joining the protest, like, can I hold a sign? I was like, yeah, please do it. I had people joining afterwards and joining our group because of that. And so, you don't realize it when you're there because you just see negative faces and stuff like that. But when you see this reaction, you see that actually a lot of more people care than you actually think, and that you're able to inspire other people. It's just a very beautiful moment that makes it really, really worth it, that you can make other people care,
I completely stand by the statement I made in the introduction, which is that I believe that we will see an end to fur farming in our lifetimes. However, the fight against fur farming is not over yet. As we look to the future, what goals do you have for your respective organizations in the next few years?
Yeah, we have one goal only, end the fur industry. That's it.
Boom.
Same. Fur farming is banned. We want fur out of the shops. Now, we're very lucky that due to previous campaign work, a lot of the big department stores and boutiques have already signed fur-free policies. So there's just a handful left. They're nearly all gone, so it won't be long.
So for us, as I mentioned, mink fur farms are banned in British Columbia, but we're looking for a complete ban. And we know that there's at least one fox fur farm application that is put forward in British Columbia, waiting approval. And that being said, avian flu is just ripping through our world, and including in Canada, and it's already infected several fox in Canada. So we're going to kind of shift gears a bit. We were focused on COVID and mink, and now we're focused on avian flu in foxes and other species of animals, and we really hope that that will propel a complete ban, and then from there we're going to push for the federal ban.
I will add one thing onto that. After we have the ban in BC, we would really like to support activists who may be interested in executing something similar in other provinces in Canada where fur farms are still active. So the goal is get the ban in BC, get the ban in all the other provinces, and then go for the federal ban, which we will. In conclusion, and then I have a conclusion, could each of you share a message of inspiration for our fellow activists who are here today? In particular, any advice you would offer to anyone who may be in the audience who is just at the inception of their activism journey?
Well, I would just advise to start somewhere, believe in yourself, and find your team that's on the same wavelength and is as passionate as you are. I'd just like to give a special shout out to my comrades that are here at the conference at the moment: Evelyn, Linda, Carl, Suzanne, and Tom. They're more than comrades, they're family, they're friends, and I might be the one that does most of the talking, but they put in an equal amount of the work, and the ban on fur farming would not have been achieved without them. So find your team, just believe in yourself, believe in each other, support each other, and do it, because there's nothing stopping activists when we have a focus.
Yeah, so I just want to add on to that, and basically we need people doing stuff. You just need to get active. I think all of you already are, so I think it's just preaching to the choir, but sometimes it feels like, the problems are really big, and we're really small, but when you look at this room full of people and this beautiful conference, it's just so inspiring to see so many people. It just gives that strength to keep going, and the thing is that we need people everywhere, so it doesn't matter what you're good at, the social media, being loud, whatever it is that you want to do, just do it. We need you, so don't underestimate yourself, because every change starts with one person, and minorities are the thing that always has changed, big changes. So, we are a minority and we will change it, but we need to stay active. And the second thing that we would say, since I think most of us are active, is we need this activism to be sustainable. I think in average, the life of an activist is around 2-3 years, which is really short. We keep finding new people that keep joining, and people can keep dropping, but the ones that stay are very, very, not a lot. Self-care, really, really self-care, reach out to other people, make sure that you create a healthy community, be kind to each other, be respectful, be mindful, and remember that we're always here for the animals, so, we can be different, we don't have to like each other, we don't have to be friends, we just need to learn how to work together, that's all.
So, yes, I agree. I would say I talk to a lot of activists, and for some reason, I keep seeing activists say that my goals are too big. I don't know why. I see activists who are very, very determined, very passionate, out there every week doing stuff, but they don't think that they can achieve much. I don't know why. I think we are doing ourselves a disservice and the animals a disservice by setting the bar too low. Set big goals. We can do it. Like, it's just me, Zoe, and one other person, and then a small group of people at home, and yet look what we've achieved. If we have strong strategy and strong tactics, we can do it. I think we are more capable than we give ourselves credit for. So go for it. Find a goal that's achievable, that's realistic. We're not going to get animal liberation tomorrow, but there's lots of small goals the way there. And set your sights on one and go for it. We can do it.
So, before we jump into questions from the audience, I would like to say thank you to our 3 panelists for contributing today. I believe it's really important, again, to acknowledge the incredible, incredible work that the conference organizing committee has done to make this transpire. And last but not least, on behalf of them, but also on a personal note, I just want to extend gratitude to anyone and everyone who contributes to the animal liberation movement in any capacity. And don't stop.